Hello, everyone. We haven't heard from Nathan Armstrong, Chief Technology Officer at Aptera, in a while. So I was wondering if he was still with the company. He's still listed on their website, but there was a recent interview that was just posted today from a small Canadian channel. I will link the original video in the description below. But I just cut out the part that deals with Aptera and give some interesting information about the early days of Aptera, and he's a little bit more straightforward about what happened with Aptera. When Chris and Steve talk about it, they try to be nice and not blame anyone, but Nathan Armstrong comes out and says that the guys from Detroit kind of screwed up the company. Um, anyway, very interesting, short little interview. And he does take some liberties with the numbers, saying things like, one battery from an EV car can make 20 Aptera. I mean, it's not that big of a difference. It's, probably three times the difference instead of 20 times. But anyways, interesting video. I clipped out the part that deals with Aptera. Hope you guys enjoy.
And on the other side, you got involved with Aptera. So maybe talk a bit about that.
Yeah, that was back in, so it was back when I was living in California. Jason Hill, who's the designer, he was a buddy, we just done a project together. He just called me out of the blue and he says, hey, we got this crazy aerodynamic project in San Diego. I'm just going back to go meet these guys. Are you interested in getting involved, right? Helping engineering? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So that was like 2002, something like that, like way back, 2003 maybe. And we went and met these guys and they had this prototype. And I still got the Popular Mechanics magazine with them in the desert with a diesel engine in the back and they got 300 miles per gallon. And they raised $1 million, right? So they got $1 million and they were like, okay, we got $1 million. We've got this prototype, like, what do we do, right? So Jason and I, we just kind of like went through, like I engineered it, Jason designed it, and we went through the first Type 1 vehicle, then the Type 2, which we put little windows in, and then the Type 3, which was a little different again. And yeah, it was a very interesting like piece of history back that kind of time frame. A lot of good orders, a lot of good positive feedback from people, and everyone's like, this is great. The company itself, there were some issues with the board of directors and like the team from Detroit that showed up to try and like help manage the project. Like we were basically too successful, so the board of directors decided they needed like Detroit people to help. And they came and they just made an absolute mess of things. And 2 years later, that company was essentially gone, right? So that was a big shame. The IP was bought by a gentleman in San Diego, and he sat on it. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2019, and his widow phoned up Chris and Steve and said that you want your project back.
Wow.
And they were like, yes, right? So they put a little kind of invitation out for somebody if anyone wants to invest, get it going again. They did it like Monday morning, but then Monday lunchtime they had money in the bank. Like, they're like, hey, you want to get going on the project again? This was like November 2019. And I was like, hell yeah, right? It's like the Blues Brothers, right? We're getting the band back together, right? Like, we're going to do this, right? So, like, Jason, I got back involved and we had some money and then, like, I started working on it. And then come June 2020, we had the vehicle, like, engineered and we're building it. And the rest is history now. We're Series B, 40 million raised. We've got 150 employees.
And you're still it's still going, like you're still looking for, always looking for people to work, and this is scaling up, this is...
big time, yeah. And like we were saying earlier too, now all of a sudden there's a solar vehicle market now. And Aptera now is like, because it's now a thing, right? It just raises the little niche that we had and just takes us up another level, right? So now not only are we like the most aerodynamic, the most efficient vehicle, now we've got the solar thing and it's like this whole, we've kind of like just, there's moments where you're like, wow, we seem to be just at the right time this time. I think we're just at the right time this time. Like when we did it 10 years back, it was probably too early. Battery technology's improved a bit,
I don't think people accepted it as much either back then, right?
Not as much. The idea was still accepted, but there wasn't like the pressing need to have like much better efficiency.
Fast forward today?
Right, yes, exactly. Even electricity prices now for a gas guy or electric car are going up to the point where people are like, what's the alternative? And it seems that kind of we've hit the nail on the head with this one, so.
It's incredible, and like you said, the car is designed purely for efficiency.
That was the whole premise from the very beginning. Like Steve's whole thing was like, what's the most efficient car you can possibly design? And let's start with that. And then everyone else is just going to have to try and catch up. Right? This is like, what are you going to do from there? Like you can't beat the design.
No,
so
not at all.
So
and to be able to fit solar panels on there, and you get, what's the charge? Like, what do you get on the autonomy on the solar panel?
About 40 miles a day in Southern California. Right?
That's insane.
But even up in Alberta here, like this is the sunniest place in Canada. So it's not necessarily hot, but it's still sunny. So even up here, you get 20, 30 miles a day.
Which is more than enough on the average of a commuter would need. Wow.
Yep. And then because it is such a small battery pack, even if you plug it into a 110, funny enough, you actually get like a decent amount of charge in an hour to get you around, right? So there's other advantages too for being like efficient. Right? So.
Where do you see EV going? Because it's become the thing. It's become, I don't want to say the flavor of the month because it's more than the flavor of the month, but it's become such a headline. Yeah. Where do you see EV going? Are we at the beginning of it?
No, I don't think we are actually. I don't know if you saw that thing recently on wind turbines where they buried all those wind turbine blades. And it was a big controversy because it was like they literally like buried like hundreds of massive wind turbine blades out in the desert and just buried them because they were all out of life and they were now no longer useful. And everyone's like, wait, hang on a minute, that's supposed to be a clean technology, right? What are you guys doing? You buried, that's not clean, right? Look at all that waste it's producing, right? EV, same thing. EVs are, it's going to save the world, EVs are great. Battery production, from an environmental standpoint, nah, it's not great. And limited resources there too, right? Oil and gas is going to run out. Well, we're going to run out of cobalt, we're going to run out of, right? It's going to get harder and harder to get. So the amount of batteries that are required to be manufactured to keep up with the demand of the curve of EVs it's just not feasible.
It's not feasible.
It's not feasible. Okay. It's just not that much raw material on the planet. So batteries are going to become a commodity. And the use of batteries and the intelligent use of batteries is going to become, I think, more of a driving factor than it is today.
Okay.
Like today, you just put as many batteries as you can on whatever you're building, and there's your vehicle.
Yeah.
There you go, right? There's your range, there you go. But I mean, the amount of batteries that are being used in some of these new big EVs, it's mind-blowing. Like we could take the same amount of batteries and build 20 Apteras with that same battery used in one vehicle. Right? So what's the more intelligent use of those batteries, of that resource, right? So I don't think EVs are just going to linearly continue to take over. I think we're going to see people going to start saying, wait, hang on a minute. We're using all these resources now to EVs. Is this the best thing to do? Right? Is hydrogen going to make a bit of a comeback? Because now hydrogen is, it's a pretty good option, right?
Yeah.
You know, when EVs start becoming, not the big darling child anymore, maybe hydrogen will come back. Maybe battery technology will improve. Everyone's been talking about this for forever now. It's getting to the point of like mass commercialization with whatever battery technology you want to like invent and then get that adopted into the market is such a risk. At this point, no one's really varying too far from the lithium ion kind of technology. So we're not seeing any massive improvements. We're seeing improvements in charge cycle time.
Yep.
That's a big one. We're seeing now from like 10,000 charge cycles to like 100,000 charge cycles. That's a big deal, right? That means now your battery lasts 3 times the length of the vehicle, which means as a vehicle owner, you're paying for a third of the battery.
Oh.
Which is a big deal, right?
Okay.
Unless your vehicle is going to last 100,000 charge cycles, like the Aptera might, because it's composite and it's not going to rust, right? So maybe it would spool that. But anyway, so the length of the battery is going to improve. But the density, the weight, and the cost all seem to be
staying the same.
Sort of staying the same. So, so there's not going to be any real, I don't know, like pretty soon, people, like you see more and more environmentalist like stories about battery production. You're going to start seeing more of that. You're going to see more people pushing back on, and I think that's going to start changing the trend a bit.
Okay.
Towards more, not away from EVs, but just towards more intelligent EVs, smaller EVs, more like city EVs, like the stuff that Citroen's doing, and like people are doing more in Europe, kind of like smaller cars. Makes a lot of sense because you only got a small battery, small car. You're not going very far.
No.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Right. You put batteries in a F-350. It sort of doesn't make any sense.
Well, I have a Wrangler EV.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, I understand what you're talking about.
It's pure electric or is it a hybrid?
It's a hybrid.
Okay.
It's a hybrid vehicle. So you get 50 kilometers on a full charge, but depending on how you drive and how the wind conditions are.
There's tires on that thing.
And there's big tires on those things.
It's not a good idea, right? It's just not good.
Yeah, it's not efficient.
No.
It's not an efficient design of the vehicle. No.
So if you're looking for efficiency, so anyway, I think people have to start thinking more efficient, which is going to cause a whole bunch of good things that
happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Everyone will start getting a bit more kind of just conscientious about this massive, like, available area, called aerodynamics and lightweighting, that really not many OEMs have really even, like, entered that, like, realm of, like, oh, what can we do to try and make our vehicles more efficient? Like, Mercedes-Benz have come out with a vehicle now that's really aerodynamic, but it's still really heavy, right? So, you're only going to get so far with that, right? So,
absolutely.
Anyway, but that's more like, that's a bit of aircraft thinking coming into the auto industry. There's a bit of aerospace coming in, right? Which is going to change prices and change how people think about building cars. And so there's a revolution happening all the time in the auto industry, but you only see it 2 years later when the vehicles are actually out. Right? But internally right now, a lot of companies are really trying to figure out what And what are they going to do? You know, like what is going to be the future?
That's a good question.
You know, right?
That's a good question.
No one knows.
No one knows.
No one has any idea, right? Gas engines, I mean, they're not going away, and they keep getting better, and they keep getting more efficient, you know. So I mean, there might be some big breakthroughs in two-stroke technology, who knows, or something, right? Or some kind of like synthetic fuel that comes out that is super clean. Like,
Who knows?
Who knows? So anyway, we're betting on small vehicles that don't use a lot of batteries, so we're not like committing a huge amount of resources to any particular.
Smart.
Right? Same with the bike, same with Aptera, same with all this stuff. It's an efficient use of materials is the main thing.
All right, it was great hearing from Nathan Armstrong, and good to see that he's still involved with Aptera. He was very busy early on, about 2 years ago, when Aptera first restarted. He was giving a lot of interviews and stuff, but we haven't seen him in a while, but he's still around and still involved. I thought it was an interesting interview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you found anything in particular interesting, please comment below. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.